The following is a conversation and sculpture portrait of my friend Aristotle days before he moved back to Ukraine. Ari is one of the most interesting people I know. He's been my friend for over a decade, and in that time he has been a chess teacher, an arborist, a fashion designer, and more. In 2024 he moved to Ukraine, and now he's going back. What I love about Ari is that he is so himself. You can never quite predict what he's going to say, but he's always tried to put himself in direct contact with life in ways that many people don't even think to do. And that's really what this conversation is about. It's not about geopolitical analysis. It's an intimate look at a rather special and unique soul. In this conversation, we'll cover his adventures in Ukraine, the things he learned talking to locals, officers, foreign legionaries, and more. We'll talk about his upbringing and how he became the kind of person that he is. And I'd like to note that this is really a raw and personal conversation, so everything that he says is just his opinion alone. And the whole aim of this project is to try and capture his character in conversation and in clay. I hope you enjoy. Yeah, welcome, Ari.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
Good, tired.
Yeah.
I'm Ari. Michael knows me, but I'm speaking to this, the third person, so this is strange.
Yeah.
I am 26 years old, born in Melbourne, Australia, and I am moving to Ukraine in a week, 6 days.
How do you feel about that?
Good. Excited?
Yeah?
Yeah. I just told you that I just kind of am disassociated at work. I have to catch up with my emotions a bit.
Yeah.
So then I'm just feverishly excited after work, and then I kind of check out again when I'm at work, but it's only 3 more days of that, so.
How does this compare to the first time you went to Ukraine? Is it a similar level of excitement, or?
Way more excited. Last time I left, it was a bit more gotta see what's going on there. The war obviously bothered me quite a bit, and yeah, I just wanted to see how it was, what was going on, how it was in real life versus how the media kind of portrays it, I guess. It kind of all has its own spin on it, and it was nice to just be oh, okay, this is it, yeah.
And why Ukraine at this point in time? Why not go to some other country that's going through some struggle?
Because they kind of look like me, honestly. I know that sounds weird, but seeing people really go through it, it just did feel a bit closer to home when they just look like my brother or my mum. Yeah, I guess there was an element of that. And also it's just a lot less complicated. There's other conflicts in the world that are unfair, of course. But this is just, these people want to come here and take this shit, and they're not letting them take it. So it's just so much more simple, whereas there's other injustices and bad things going on, but I wouldn't say it's more nuanced, but it's more icky, it's more complicated. And also life kind of goes on there, if that makes sense. The universities are still open, the western parts of the country are more or less less affected by bombings and airstrikes, even though not exclusively. Yeah, you can kind of get into the groove of living a normal life while being there and being helpful. They're definitely in it in Ukraine, obviously. Yeah, I guess it's more life goes on.
Yeah.
I guess.
Growing up as you did in Australia, what draws you this kind of intensity?
I don't know if it's intensity. What draws me to it? It definitely is more visceral. Just the day-to-day life. But I guess just the fact that it is more visceral kind of attracted me to it. Because here things are very slow. It's you get your job, do your university, you do your route, okay, good job, now work for a little bit, get your nice girlfriend, get your speculative investment property that you live in, and kind of chill out. And once that's done, then you're free. And it's I don't want to do that. And I feel socially it's kind of hard to exist in it when I'm not really sold on that idea. I think it's a bit of a farce. I think it's a little bit of it's gone by almost. I don't know. I've never really resonated with Australian culture that much. I've always kind of been a little bit spaced out when it comes to the normal Aussie things.
So how do you compare the way your life feels in Australia versus how it felt in Ukraine?
Way more purpose, obviously. I mean, I've lived there for only 3 months. I got there in May last year. And then my goal was just to, job, apartment, girlfriend, sorted. Now you can like kind of live like your life and like, learn the language and like get like acclimated and like really experience it and like be there for whatever is like happening. And I accomplished all those things really early on. I think like 2 weeks, maybe. I like did like a 1 week internship at a university, and then I had a really, really lovely girlfriend and an apartment, and like all was sorted. Had like my business visa, had like a year contract, like it was all done. I thought it'd be way more difficult. I thought it'd take 3 months, but no, they're just like, sweet, we love it, get in here.
What was your first like day in Ukraine like?
I crossed from the Medyak, well, I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong, but the Polish border on foot from like Medyaka. It's not pronounced like that. It's not even spelled like that, but close enough. And then I get to the border crossing, like on foot. I didn't take the train just because I just kind of saw on a YouTube video that these people were crossing like this. I'm like, yeah, that looks easy. I'll just do that. And then, as I'm crossing in, it's like 28 degrees. It's a bit stinky and hot. And like just get to the border. I get off. It'd be like if you caught the Hurst Bridge line to like the border of Ukraine and then walked 5 minutes, and then you're like at this like big gate with like all these like guards, and you're just like, oh, okay. And getting to the gate, they just like look at my passport and they're like, what's your name? When were you born? Which I've never been asked before, but I think they were like, I thought might have been doing something dodgy. And then they're like, are you here for business or pleasure? I'm like, pleasure, I guess. And they're like, okay. They stamped the back of my passport, which I thought was funny. They let me in, and I'm just like, because it's the kind of alternative route, land border crossing. There isn't too much infrastructure. There's like a bunch of buses and stuff, and mainly women who are like crossing, very few young men. I'm just kind of like at the border, and I'm like, no cell phone reception. I got to get to Lviv. I have a booking. This is confusing. I'm like asking people in like broken Ukrainian how to get to somewhere, and they're like, what? And I'm like, can't Google Translate or anything because I don't have any phone reception. I just found like not like a taxi, but like a little weird like mobile van thing. And I'm like, hello, do you walk to Lviv? In Ukrainian? Obviously it's supposed to do you drive, but I didn't know the word for drive. And then it's like, what? I'm like, sorry, do you walk to Lviv? I'm not really good with Ukrainian. Like, yeah, Lviv now? I'm like, yeah, sure, how much? And then like 4,000 hryvnia. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. I got like heat stroke. I'm like, sure, whatever.
So far, you crossed the Polish border into Ukraine. It was sweaty.
And then it's like an hour and a half taxi drive to Lviv. And then, I get there at like 6 p.m. I just like kind of get in the hostel, get everything sorted. But on the first time, like I texted my Ukrainian language teacher, and she's like, what, you're here? I'm like, yeah.
Did she not know you were coming?
No. And then she's like, well, I'm busy tonight, but I'll see you tomorrow. I'm like, okay, sweet. So I just took it easy. I woke up in the morning, and I'm like, oh, what the And I'm just like walking around. There's like generators on constantly because it was like a bit of a power outage. So all the stores have like portable generators at the front. It was a little bit of a wig out. Just like, okay, my language skills are nowhere near as good as I thought they'd be, even though I'd been studying in Australia. Like once you're there, it like changes. You get humbled very quickly. Like the weird things that I did was just kind of like walk around like a tourist, you know, like just like get lunch, chilled. And then I saw my my Ukrainian teacher, and then she's like, whoa, we got along really well. And then she's like, yeah, we'll help you find an apartment. What are you doing tomorrow? I'm like, nothing. And then she's like, okay, well, come with me, we'll go check out this place. I'm like, okay, cool, that was easy. And then from then on I pretty much like had my own place sorted, got in touch with the university. She helped me with that as well, which was really nice. The university was like, you here? Yeah, come in tomorrow. And then, I went in and then interviewed. And then, like, do you want to do an internship? And I was kind of like, yeah, sure. And they're like, okay, great. I'm not used to, like, the way they do things over there. And like confirmation is the confirmation. Here I feel like, do you want to do this thing? I'll send you an email, when to be there, who to be, we'll send you a text, some like formal thing.
Yeah.
And I just kind of said in passing, like, yeah, sure, I'll do this like 1 week intensive. Called me like, hey, so you ready for tomorrow? I'm like, what?
Man, so you cross the border, you meet your teacher, and now you have a job in an apartment.
Yeah, it was very quick. It was all very good. I think I faffed around a little bit. I went to like soup kitchens and not soup kitchens, but like preparing like cut up vegetables that are like freeze dried and then like sent to the soldiers on the front, like making them like little packets and like meals and stuff, like soups.
Yeah,
I was doing that sort of stuff and just kind of felt like Skyrim, you know, you have to like interact with like all the characters to like get quests. Just like, because I feel like when you're in home, you have like your social circles, you have your friends, you have all these like things built up, but there you have nothing.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you have nothing, you just kind of got to like start talking to people. So you like go up and just press E on them, and then sometimes they like, you know, they help you with your quest.
What are some quests you got?
Far out. What was one of the quests? I don't know, just like...
I remember one. We were calling, and then at one point you were like, oh, how do I want to go? There's an air raid.
Oh, yeah, that would happen.
And then the other one was, I was like, what are you doing last night? And you said, I have to help someone move a generator up some stairs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did.
You said it very nonchalantly. I kind of had the impression you were running fetch quests, you know?
Yeah, kind of. But it's like sweet, because like you're there and you like want to get amongst it. And people are like, do you want to... Here's a little side quest. I'm like, sweet.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Were there other people in the hostel that you met?
They were all soldiers.
All
basically.
soldiers?
Pretty much, yeah. No tourists, really. I did meet some tourists at the like little soup... I'm just going to call it a soup kitchen because I don't know what else to call it. And there were a lot of tourists there. There'd be like from like Quebec and America and like Switzerland and all these other places. And just like kind of there to help, I guess. But yeah, they were really nice.
How'd like the soldiers respond to you being there?
They were stoked. Yeah, they were really nice. For the most part, anyone I told, they're like, where are you from? They always thought I was from the UK. And then I'm like, oh, I'm from Australia. And they're like, what?
I mean, how did you explain yourself?
I didn't have to. Yeah, I think they kind of get it. Sometimes people would be like, oh, why are you here? And I'd just be like, oh, it's quite a personal question. And I'd be like, yeah, I know. Like, like it's a lot to unload. Yeah. They're always quite funny with it. But yeah, for like reasons of being there, it's like multifaceted, of course. But just to be kind of like present and to like help and to like kind of show my support in a weird way. Yeah. Was definitely the reason. That was like most easily understood and explained and kind of was like the core of everything.
And I mean, how were the soldiers?
It varies. Yeah, it varies completely. Some soldiers, like the one at the first hostel I stayed at, were definitely a little bit rattled. If you're staying at a hostel and you're Ukrainian and your family and everyone's like from Lviv, usually you're kind of staying at a hostel with the other soldiers just because it's probably really hard for you to live with other people at the moment. A lot of them had really bad PTSD. You could just tell. And we're just like dead broke and we're having like a very, very rough time, I guess, reacclimating in a weird way, because I think it's full on going from that back to this and then just expected to be like, yo, job, you know?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, if you have like episodes like night terrors, I imagine you might not want to live with, you know, families or whatever. I mean, you know, I'm just completely guessing because they keep it to themselves. And also, I wasn't really looking to dig. Yeah, totally. I guess. But you could tell. And then some people take it really well, or not like really well, but they're not as rattled, and others were definitely rattled. But yeah.
Was it a big topic of conversation when you just talked to regular citizens and whatnot, like the war, where did you feel super conscious that there was this thing going on?
No, it's almost never spoken about directly.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there, it's present, but they have an energy where it's just like, is what it is. We're gonna like keep continuing our life and fighting and just going to work and doing the thing, which was like really beautiful to see. Even people with like limbs missing, with like prosthetic legs and stuff, you know, they walk with a pretty confident stride, you know, they're like proud of it. It's not some sort of like harrowing thing for them. It's just reality, and they just kind of got amend to it. So like it sits there like in the ether, but the only time it really showed itself to like a really obvious point when I was at work, and I'm in Lviv, and they'd recently bombed the largest children's hospital in Kyiv. We killed something like 30, you know, basically like kids and like doctors and stuff. You know, one of my coworkers just like burst into tears and went home crying. And I only found out about it after I checked like on Instagram, like maybe 4 hours later. And I could tell everyone at work was like a little bit like not happy, you know, best way to put it. Yeah. Jesus. And then you see it and you get like riled up, obviously. And also people, I don't know, everyone's energy just shifts for that day, basically. I remember I was getting looks a lot.
And why do you think that was?
You know, I might just be projecting, but getting like a look from some like, you know, late 30s, early 40s mother when they're like staring at you with like strange, maybe it was contempt, maybe it was nothing. But I do think like right after the bombing, you kind of feel like I should really go over there and fight. And then people kind of looking at you like, what the f*** are you doing here? Yeah. You know? So those sort of flashes would come up, but for the most part, that's the only time I really felt it. Other than that, it's just kind of life is normal, right?
What's it like for the other young Ukrainian men in a place like Lviv?
Oh, it's terrible for them. Yeah. Young men have it. You feel guilt? Well, not you feel guilt. I mean, like, guilt's just like a present thing. For everyone there. You'll feel guilty if you go overseas. You'll feel guilty that you're not doing enough. You'll feel guilty that you're just enjoying yourself. You'll feel guilty that maybe you're not like supporting in the way you wish you could or know you could, but you know, there's like, there's just like minutia to everyday life that kind of has to be taken into account for, and you can't like put everything on this war front. Kind of just is there as a primary thing, but it isn't everything. But for young men, it definitely is the everything. You'll get snatched off the street. You might just get grabbed from work. Yeah. That happened to my English teacher's best friend the day I got there, which was pretty rough. But yeah, I don't know. Like you'll see like young men working the bar, and you can kind of tell they just seem a little bit frightened and guilty, right? You feel guilt if you do go and fight because you're leaving your family. You feel guilt if you don't go and fight because you're not fighting to protect your family. You'll feel guilt for, you know, just like no matter what decision you make, if you like leave the country to go like live in Poland, you'd feel guilt as well. And like anxiety, of course, but not some like feverish pitch one, just kind of one that just like sits in the back of the eyes, very like solemn kind of anxiety. Like they know that something might happen and they just kind of got to deal with it. And it could just be like their friends might have been drafted or have gone to fight and they might be in trouble, or they're kind of, you know, their brothers or themselves, or it was definitely an intense thing that like hovers over the young men there, which made it very difficult to kind of socialize with them. Yeah, because they're going through everything, and you know, just I'm Australian dude. Right? And I'm like, for the most part, very optimistic to Ukrainian standards, and kind of like, hi. And it's just different. And yeah, that made it a bit more difficult to kind of get like acclimated. But like, there's just this separation. Like, you just live in different worlds. And, you know, it's just because I have a different passport at the end of the day. I would make friends with people that either were soldiers, had kind of already doing their role, like they might be like an officer teacher, or, you know, Foreign Legion or something like that. But yeah, those guys definitely have a bit of a wobble to them. Yeah.
Well, did you notice similar, like, different things with women in the town, or like much older people?
Couldn't say for older people. I think older people have seen it before, in a weird way, right? They've seen Soviet Union. They've seen. I guess it's not entirely new to them, but it definitely like affects them. I think the old people seem tired. They seem sick of it. The girls, they keep face a lot better, but you know, instead of it being like this all-encompassing thing for the young men, I think for the girls it's definitely all-encompassing, but it simmers and then it peaks and then it dips. They have it just as rough because it's like, yeah, cool, my best friend got drafted, or my girl best friend's brother died and I have to go to that funeral, or I've noticed the graveyards doubled in size past year.
Really?
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, but I think they're a lot better at not like closing it off in like any sense of like a cruel way or anything, but I do think they can kind of keep it there when it needs to be there and you need to get on with your life, which is like a really good thing that you do need to do. But yeah, I think they have it very, very, very difficult as well. And there's also things like guilt, right?
Yeah.
A lot of girls fight, right? Or like become medics, or, you know, they get amongst it. It's not just like the young men fighting, it's everyone. But yeah, there's no escaping it. If you're like, yeah. Or I mean,
yeah. Tell me about just a day in your life when you're living in Ukraine.
Kind of fluctuated. It was always like doing weird little schemes, I guess. Well, like weird little adventures, like checking out different cities and different pockets and stuff, and just being like, whoa. And a lot of it was just kind of trying to feel it out, tick off my checklist and getting ready to like stay there. Then kind of getting a little bit overwhelmed and freaked out and deciding maybe now is not the best time. But I had this idea of like living there for a year, like as a goal almost. I didn't leave with a terribly large amount of money or knew exactly what I was in for. And I kind of got to a point where I'm like, this is a big deal to like live here for a year and work here for a year. One of the biggest worries was actually getting stuck in a career, because I found with teaching, I did just for that 1 week internship was really intense, because I think I made it very hard for myself. I'm like, okay, I got to show up, and just like whipping together curriculum every night and like not much notice and like wanting to like do a lot and kind of like not burning myself out, but actually, yeah, burning myself out for sure. Because it was quite like mentally taxing as well. Yeah, I was just teaching like as an intensive class for like 2 hours a day, every day, and then kind of like hanging out before and after of just like a class and a lesson and stuff.
What were you teaching?
English.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were junior officers from I don't know if I should go into crazy detail. Probably rather not. But they were junior officers that wanted to join the war effort when they were 17, when it first started. They couldn't, obviously, because they were under 18. So they went into the officer stream, where they'd be in charge of a platoon, I think, 20 people or so. So they were quite a big deal. And if you're going to be an officer, it's good that you know English, because knowing English is a sign. It's a social status thing. So if you're an officer, you should be high in social status. And also, if you're working with a myriad of different countries and support, which they are and have been, it's good to know English as well. Yeah. So they're there. There's like a good opportunity for themselves to just like learn. And here I am, a native English speaker, which is an excellent resource for the university I was working at. So I helped them with that. And
I'm quite curious about getting overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So what was sort of that process like? So
okay, air raids didn't bother me.
Okay.
Hearing drones explode didn't bother me.
Hearing drones explode?
I heard one once.
Yeah.
It was like a Shaheed drone. It sounded like a moped in the sky, because the sky's blocked.
Yeah.
If you hear anything in the sky, like, what the fuck is that? Like, usually it's very quiet. And it was just like a and then you see a poof, 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 and it just blows up. It's like 3 a.m. Air raid sounds been going all night, and it's like, what? Okay, just roll over, go back to bed. It wasn't like, it didn't bother me too much. I mean, the emotional texture was weird, right? I guess like the normal things that you think would freak you out, speaking and like kind of intimately getting to know people would like PTSD wasn't a huge issue. I didn't really find it that like gut-wrenching or confronting. It was just like a reality. I think I kept my cool about it pretty well. But the things that did freak me out was like getting burnt out on being a teacher and thinking, this is going to be my career forever. Worried about like having just like enough money, because I kind of blew through my savings very quickly. And I hadn't saved a whole bunch because I was kind of just like, I'm going now, I'm going this, I don't care, I'll figure it out. And it was weird. It was more like the weird life stuff. I was like, oh, I have this girlfriend I really like. I hope she doesn't get pregnant. And I hope I don't get like stuck with this job. And I was just kind of like, I felt like I was committing to a lot because like anything at any point could go wrong in that way. And it's like a missed period definitely put the fear of God into me, because it was just kind of like, okay, yeah, duh, of course, that's like a consideration. And then it's like you'd really be not stuck, but you'd be tethered quite closely to this place. And I was just kind of like, if this is the decision I'm going to make to stay in this country, to pursue this career with this sort of like gumption and like desire, maybe, you know, winter's coming, you know, it's like August now, like summer's kind of ending. You've got maybe like 3,000 Australian dollars. You're only making around like 600 per month. That's enough to like live off, but you know, 1.5 has to be saved for like your flight home if anything goes wrong. And I was just kind of feeling like a little bit constricted, a little bit tight. And I kind of had this thought like, this seems sweet. I could definitely live my life here and do my thing here. It's not going anywhere. Take a step back, enjoy another summer in Australia, do what a Ukrainian person would do in your position, right? They'd probably take the 6 months off and enjoy an extra summer and save up like, you know, 15 grand, right? Why wouldn't you? So I was kind of just like thinking from that perspective. Once I got to that like decision, I just wanted to see what else there was kind of like offered in life. Because I'd done the university thing, I've had like quite a fulfilling job before as well. Yeah, I kind of just wanted to see what else was there. And the last thing I really kind of wanted to see what it would be like if I was like a tradesperson in Australia. You know, I had my eyes open the whole time in like visiting Germany and like Poland as well beforehand. I was like, okay, Australia is definitely uniquely rich and strongly positioned in the way how you can like be a tradesperson and like make $100,000 a year and like kind of having like a fulfilling active job that's like mentally demanding and all these like good things, and then you know have this like freedom and like prosperity from something that's kind of unique to Australia in that way. And I wanted to just give it a shot, and I did. Been doing it for like 6 months, but I realized I really missed Ukraine, so I wanted to go back. And
was it hard to leave?
Not really, because I had my girlfriend who I really loved at the time, and as I was leaving, she was kind of like both bit in tears. I'm like, you know, this is like a lot. I just gotta like take some time and like figure it out. And well, she's like, I have a friend's wedding in Greece, so we'll be there like 22nd of like August or whatever. We'll meet there for like a week or something if you want. And I'm like, sweet. So in a weird sense, it didn't kind of leave me because like I had that thing to like look forward to. Once I left the border and got into Poland, it was really quite nice because the Polish people know what's up. They have like a lot of Ukrainian refugees, and they're a neighbor with Russia, and they know what it means and what's happening, and there's no confusion of right and wrong. Seeing a friend too in Germany was a bit more harrowing because, you know, a couple-hour train ride away, they're going through hell, and it's just like business as usual here in like a really large sense, and also people just didn't really give in Poland for them, not in Poland, in Germany for the most part, or at least compared to like Polish people. And that was a bit like, oh, you know, that was a bit upsetting, I guess, because you know I was just there. I'm like, you guys are like worried about this stuff. There's this happening like on your doorstep. It was a bit shocking to just see how like checked out people were over there. They just didn't care, but they were just, I don't know, it seemed vacant. Vacant in their minds. Yeah.
And with these last 6 months you've been in Australia, you're now planning to head back to Ukraine. Why?
Purpose is a big one.
When you say purpose, What do you mean by that?
I feel like I'm doing something important there. Or not something important, but like, yeah, you can feel a bit like a ghost here, I think. With like job and like the normality of like social scenes, it can feel very like root and mechanical. But over there, it felt a lot more fluid, a lot more real, I think. People have no issue with like, not emotional vulnerability, but what they say is what they mean, and they kind of understand a lot of like underlying things about what it means to like go through things. And in Australia, for the most part, people are pretty... they're just doing their Aussie things. And it's like, I don't really give a about the footy or like investment properties. Or like doing overpriced cocaine or like, you know, like it's just...
You've hit the big three.
Yeah. Yeah, I just find the social scenes lackluster.
Yeah.
I find relationships really hard to... being like kind of vulnerable in a weird way. I think people are kind of like quite protective in that aspect. And also like I kind of feel like I'm from the moon a little bit. And I'm from like a weird little Martian here. It's a bit more alienating. Whereas over there, it's just kind of like, yeah, of course, duh, you know?
So you feel like you fit in better over there?
Yeah, 100%.
And when you talk about vulnerability, I might be wrong here, but I get the impression you're not just talking about like it's not just like a willingness to share. Like, I guess in Australia, my sense that there are a lot of people who are like open, vulnerable, you know, pretty therapy core and stuff like that. Is it something different in Ukraine? Like, would you say that the way people are vulnerable over here compared to over there feels different?
It feels more real in a weird way. I guess visceral, right? A lot less is like taken for granted in a sense.
What are some things that you think Australians maybe take for granted?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think Australians actually take anything for granted, but I do think their like objectives and like prerogative is just very in line with, you know, the kind of just malaise that goes on with life here. Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one to like pin down because there's definitely like a sense of I guess it just feels a lot more confusing here and confused in a weird way.
Yeah. So like the meaning in Ukraine just a lot more direct. Like it's a very one-to-one, quite clear what's going on.
Kinda. I don't know how to put it. I also don't want to just like Westerners or like Australia and like, you know, pin Ukrainians up as like, oh my god, so virtuous, so good. Because, you know, they're human beings as well. They can be total pieces of like, there's no human difference. It's just like a cultural difference. It's like, you know, if someone close to you dies, you kind of treat life differently. And you kind of treat it in like a more authentic and like a more honest way. And I feel like Australia is very protective and it can be quite inauthentic at times with relationships. I think people are very, you know, they might use irony to protect themselves or disengage with anything to like high temperature. I think Australia is a very like low temperature country. Like nothing reaches a boil point here. If you're like overly religious, for example, or just even like medium religious, people are kind of freaked out about it because it's like a low temperature here, and kind of everything is. Like if you're overly passionate with even like wanting to like start a business or something, or like really go after something, people kind of like settle down, mate. You know, it's a bit, definitely like a tall poppy sort of thing here. And if you have any qualms with Australia, people don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. They're just like, toughen up. It could be worse, you know. You live in the best place on earth, mate. You know, they really don't like it when you kind of be like, yeah, I don't think this aspect of this thing's that great here. And they're like, what the you know, they kind of, I don't know, they spaz a little bit.
I kind of want to hear about childhood and like adolescence. Did you still feel this way when you were like, let's say like 16?
Yeah, actually for sure. Yeah. Massive space cadet as like a teenager. I remember being like 16 and someone being like, where are you from? I'm like, Melbourne. And they're like, oh, you don't look Australian. And I'm like, thanks, I guess. Like, what does that mean? But I think I always carried myself differently. And I don't think I grew up in like the Australian culture per se. I think I grew up on the internet.
Yeah.
You know? Like I grew up at a very unique time where almost like a golden age, almost, you know, from like 13 to 18. You're exposed to not Wild West, but like a very raw and like human generated kind of form of the internet, which kind of doesn't exist anymore. You know, I was kind of raised on like just playing video games with friends all days, every day, and like forums and just like, yeah, being exposed to like culture in a different way, just by being a massive nerd, I guess.
You were briefly a professional Dota 2 player.
I was. I'm glad you mentioned that.
What was your peak MMR?
Don't worry about it. But yeah, I don't know. I never had any difficulties, I guess, like socially or whatever. I always had a lot of friends.
Do you remember, like, when you first felt, you know, a bit Martian, a bit out of place? Kindergarten.
Probably. I don't know. I've always just kind of been my own person. Like,
that's true.
I've never felt this obligation to be a certain way, which is probably just insane to a lot of people. Just even when I was like really little, I'm like, I'm me. But it doesn't bother me really.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious about this, like, your relationship with, let's say, tall poppy syndrome or something like that. Because I guess it's not like you were insanely academically focused or like you weren't trying to get into like investment banking or something.
No.
Like, how did you feel the impact of tall poppy syndrome?
I guess with anything creative, I was really into like sewing and like fashion design when I was like 15 to like 18 or whatever.
You made some good stuff.
Thank you. And for the most part, just like wanting to get people to do things kind of collaboratively in like a different, just like, let's just do it and send it and get all the energy and like go this way. No one really wanted to do that. And that was really annoying because that's kind of all I ever wanted to do. It was like latch onto something and just go like full speed at it. I guess when I really noticed tall poppy syndrome was when I made my mind up about like going to Ukraine and like doing these things and definitely like doing things that like peers don't really do. Didn't like make people uncomfortable in like a dude what the sort of way. It kind of made people uncomfortable, like, why are you doing that? And it's like, because it's like just something I want to do. And then like coming back and telling people about like what I've been doing and where I've been going, it kind of freaked people out in a sense that like it felt extra to them in a weird way. It's a really hard thing to like pin down because it's a very like perceptive observation on like a culture as a whole.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like people don't like it when you go and do stuff that's not Australian or in Australia, and I think Australians also don't care about anything but Australia. And I think creatively as well, people don't really like it too much when you like commit yourself to something fully. Yeah,
I guess one of the interesting things I always found about, you know, let's say tall poppy syndrome here, it's not like anyone's discouraging, but it's more just like a vacancy.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Or just like,
why? And it's like, what do you mean? Well, like
yeah. I wanted to ask about your favorite memories in Ukraine.
Oh, that's very sweet. There were like a lot of little things that like, I mean, thinking about all like the good little snippets always involve like the people there. Like I think people think of like Eastern Europe as quite like cold and direct, which they are for sure. But I think Ukrainians differ in a way that they're actually quite like bubbly and like funny and like a little bit cheeky. Also, one of the other like nicest memories was people were like really stoked that I was there. I'd come from Australia. People would always be like, you look Ukrainian. So like, it'd be like very anonymous. And then I'd be like, oh, sorry, I don't actually speak Ukrainian. I just speak English. And then they'd be like, oh, keep speaking. Like, go on, you get in the hang of it. And that was really nice. People were like really supportive and like excited to like see you there. And I think there was like a cultural thing of like, thanks, man. Thanks for being here. Thanks for thinking, or not thanks for like thinking, but, you know, I don't know. I think it's different, like someone coming from like a very like rich country, very far away, being like, it's sick here. Your culture's dope. You people are dope. I think that's, like, it was authentic, and I think they really liked that expression, I guess. But it wasn't even an expression. It's just how I felt about things. Yeah, that was always a nice thing. Yeah, I don't know. People were like real dolls about like, you know, egging me on to like, come on, you almost got the word. I'm like, you know, that was really like nice, and they were like excited about that. I think some other countries, you know, you go to France and you're like, buongiorno, and they're like, we'll speak in English, thank you. Like they just don't care. But over there, they were like, sick.
What surprised you about being there?
Oh, the biggest surprise was a lot of hand holding, which is a strange one. But people were very thick and like sticky with each other, with like the romance. A lot of like flowers, a lot of hand holding, a lot of like very like deep, vulnerable things, just kind of like going on there. And that was like really cool to see, because you don't really see it. I don't know. I've never really seen it as present anywhere else. You know, people would be like, "Oh, Paris, city of love." It's like Lviv, man. People were it felt more like baked in a weird way. I don't know how else to put it.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you know why? I've never heard this said.
I think as people die, right? So it's like, man, situationship. I love you. You know, like I think it's a lot less flooded by like whatever things that are going on at the moment with love, basically. I think it's very complicated and like business-like in developed countries, definitely. Whereas there, it's a bit more like, you know, what else have we got? Right? Which I think is a very beautiful way to look at it. And I think also it's probably a lot more of a necessity, because they're going through some very, very difficult things. And I think love's a good medicine for that sort of thing. Yeah.
Looking back at your time in Ukraine, is there a sense for you of like, was this a high of your life, those periods of months? Was it a bit more confusing?
It was hard, right? It was really hard. Just like moving country to another place where, for the most part, like half the population is half the population is just busy. And I just mean that with like young men. Either they're gone and they're fighting, or it's occupying them to a large extent. And I think it's really hard to like make friendships with young men unless they were already in the military and kind of like backed for something. It was really hard to make friends with them, because it's just kind of like we live in different worlds. And it was hard, even though you can like acknowledge that they're going through different things. It was just really difficult to just become friends with some people. So I guess that kind of made. I think loneliness was probably the most difficult part about living in Lviv.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. Easier to amend, I think, because there's always something to do, right? Go to the soup kitchen. Go to the little, like, weird theater costume club where they're making ghillie suits for the soldiers. Go to this. There's always, like, little projects going on that you can join people in to, like, help with. And I would try and, like, get out of my way to do that as much as possible. But at times I felt very, very burnt out, it was just a bit hard to get out there. I think also with work and such, they definitely preoccupy themselves with a lot of work. Maybe to like make up for the fact that, you know, they probably feel a sense of guilt if they're not working constantly, because, you know, half the country is, right, fighting. A sense of like, well, I don't have really much time for much else. Which made it difficult because I had heaps of time. And also, it's tricky. Just like no young bucks around to kind of like shoot the breeze with. That kind of sucked. This time I'm actually going back though with a best friend. And you just need one. It just makes it so much easier. Like just having one friend. And it's like, oh cool, my girlfriend broke up with me. Not the end of the world. Because you got your friend, right? But if you're just there solo, you know, it can be tricky. And I think I have a different like social endurance. I get kind of burnt out. I've got to put a bit of effort to like get out there and stuff. You know, I like chess. I like reading. You know, I'm not like a big go to the club and like dance and
Yeah. Do you feel lonely in Australia as well?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's a very common thing. But in a different way.
How's it different?
Well, you have your creature comforts here. You have your old friend groups. You can kind of always get out there. I guess I think looking for something quite collaborative in a way, which I find very difficult to do here.
Did you think that kind of thing was easier in Ukraine? Or was it just your different
Yes,
priorities?
because people were a lot more like, why not? Here it's a bit more tricky. I guess in the sense of like making a business together, or like projects, or like this sort of thing. Creative pursuits, it's like, oh, you're painting today? I'll come over and write. We'll just do it in the same room in separate spots. Like that was like a common thing, which I really liked. Loneliness hits differently here just because it's like, I don't like fit in as well.
Yeah.
You know? I don't really like the scenes that are available here. I think they kind of don't have, you know, that visceral part of like just like humanness that I really liked in Ukraine.
Yeah. When have you felt most like you belonged, just in your life anywhere?
I don't know. I don't really think it's that important, I guess, in like belonging in that sense. Probably in Ukraine.
In Ukraine?
Yeah. It felt weirdly collaborative, because I guess there is that specter of the war going on. And just by being there, you're kind of part of helping it, part of the community, which was definitely really nice. Yeah. I think about it like that.
Were you working the whole time you were there? Were you like quite frequently doing projects or random stuff like that?
More or less. I did get a little bit stuck in the mud at the end, just because money became an issue. And I had the contract, and work didn't start till September. And I was a little bit tight on cash, and I wasn't sure exactly what was going on. It was kind of flooding up too much. It wasn't as like gung-ho productive as you think it'd be. I think because also it was like probably a little bit freaked out. There's definitely like a sense of like emotional burnout by the end.
Yeah.
Like when I went to Kyiv, that was really nice. But
what was it like in Kyiv?
Oh, dude, Lviv's like jazz bar, cafe, cool, artsy little city. Kyiv was like Metal Gear Solid. Like, you just... Oh, it was so intense. It was so f***ing good.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It was so much more dangerous, though. People were also like... All the people in Lviv, it's kind of... It's okay there. You know, they've only had one big bombing. From the start of the war to the end of the war, I think there was like a really big bombing in like August 22nd, around then. But other than that, life goes on and you're not too affected. You get blackouts, but you're never getting like bombed too much. Kyiv's a different story. It's also the capital city. It's got the hustle culture. It's got the war. It's cranked to 100. It's got weird spy people everywhere, and like mercenaries and like soldiers doing R&R. Weird administrative, geopolitical stuff. Like it was way more ramped up, and the people there, you felt the war footing so much stronger. People were also a lot more like, I don't mean this in a good or bad way, but like a little bit more cold-blooded. Like, they're busy there. They're doing yeah.
So, tell me like the full sweep of it. So like, when did you get to...
Well, I caught the train there, and when I first got there, I'm like, I'm never going to Kyiv. It's too dangerous. And then I'm like there for a week, 2 weeks, and then I'm like, I should visit. I've got some time to go. I don't know, my internship's starting for another week. I'll go visit Kyiv. I went to like a kind of weird little hostel that was, again, same story as the last one, like soldiers, and like they don't know I'm from Australia until like the second night, and they're like, what?
Just kind of assuming you're another soldier.
They just thought I was Australian, like Ukrainian. Like I don't, you know, don't stick out. And then everyone's like, yo, this guy's from Australia. And I'm like, what? He's like getting out of his bunk bed. I'm like, okay, nice. They spoke a lot more English, but they were also a lot less monkey business, I guess. You know, more orderly.
Yeah.
And a lot more cold, direct. You know, I feel like I'm doing something wrong because I come from Australia, and like everyone kind of is like smiling and shit.
Yeah.
But they're like, here's your thing, here's your food. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to f*** off? Like, I feel like I'm imposing. And they're like, what? No. But yeah, so the first 2 nights I was just at this like weird little hostel. I was looking at like, I think it was like St. Maria's Cathedral, which was just this beautiful Orthodox light blue golden church. And then it's like you go in and it's like a little bit dingy and run down, and there's like this weird like open pits of like dirt where they're like, oh yeah, here's the tomb of the guy who like settled the city. And it's like, oh, I wonder who that is. And then it's like, oh, it's the Swedish Viking Yaroslav the Wise from like 976, and he sailed, and then he mingled and created this beautiful city of like Kyiv. They have this like little pictogram of like it over 100 years of like what it looked like till now. I think like most European cities have that. I f***ing love it. Little like miniature. Yeah. And you're like, oh my god, I could imagine living there on like the outer walls with my like chickens and stuff. This looks dope. And then you like see the tomb. And you're like, yeah, this is where it all starts, the Kievan Rus. This is where Slavic people come from. Went all the way from here to like Croatia and just like did 1000 AD things, Viking things. And then it's like, here's his tomb with his wife and him from 1000 years ago, and here's his sword, the first king of the city that's like us now. And I'm like, whoa, this is different from Australia. Australia, there's like 200 years, and it's like, yeah, we sent some boats, I guess. I don't know. We chilled for 200 years, killed these people, don't look into that, you know? But there it's like, yeah, you like that? Yeah. Pretty cool. And you're like, oh. And then, I changed to a different hostel, and the previous one was like Ukrainian soldiers and like SBU, which is like the like special intelligence guys. And they were kind of like scoping me out, and they're like, nice. I think they could just tell I was a bit of a space cadet.
what gave you that impression?
Oh, because they were kind of like interrogating me a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I like saw one of the patches, I'm like, SBU? And they're like, okay, yeah. Like, I think they thought it was funny that it was like this Westerner there. But like obviously I think they were expecting me to like be something, you know. But then I went to the other place for the 2 days, and then it was all Foreign Legion guys, and that was interesting because they were from like Switzerland. One guy was from Poland, the other guy was from Kurdistan, and they were like quite standoffish, but once you start chatting, warms up incredibly quickly. And they were like all there volunteering to fight for the Foreign Legion.
Wow.
And they were all like really, 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 really sweet, good people. Yeah, these 2 guys especially, we'll just call them the Swiss and the Kurd. They were like, I don't know, something out of like a comic book. Like the noble, good, like mercenary, like fighting for like their morals, and like willing to die on the fact that they just don't want another people enslaved. Like completely dejected of like selfishness, but also have these very strong morals that are like, I'm going to say objectively good, right? And they've like killed a bunch of people. And I was like, well, this is like a weird mix. And you know, they like had a little bit of PTSD, but they were like really self-aware of it. They're like, no, I'm shaking a little bit, you know. I was out the front a little bit too long. I'm like, okay. Most people complain about their like night terrors, but these guys are just like, you know, is what it is. Yeah. Of course, right? Duh. And I'm like, okay, all right.
Yeah. Sometimes I pick up my coffee in the morning and it just spills everywhere.
Yeah. That was an interesting part. I mean, you'd meet a lot of Foreign Legion guys like in Lviv, in different parts in like Kyiv, and they all had some aspect of PTSD, and they all took it on differently. Some definitely disassociate, I guess. They just aren't quite there, and they kind of pretend like they are there, but you know, we can all tell. And you know, bless their hearts, but you know, some people just can't handle it that way. And then others are like, yeah, I knew I would have this, and I was prepared for it, and I was open to it, and it's not as bad as I thought it'd be because I know what I'm doing is right. That was really interesting to see.
How did it affect you?
Not bad. Yeah, no, it didn't really like affect me like a negative way at all. The only like ailment I had coming back from Ukraine to Australia was that I really, really missed Ukraine.
What did you miss about it when you were back here?
Oh, just the sense of like momentum and like purpose, and like what was available there in terms of like, you know, the relationships you can like make with people, in like a business sense and like a friendship sense and like a romantic sense, just like all these like really nice things. The like honesty, right? The kind of bubbly, optimistic, weird kind of cheerfulness that like sits within this malaise of like Slavic directness and coldness and like war fatigue, but it's like there and it's like really quite beautiful.
Yeah.
And how it just kind of felt like real life in a weird sense.
Love to hear. Just what was it like walking around Kyiv?
Pretty sick. A bit. The actual city itself is insane because it's like this mixture of like 1,000-year-old city mixed with Stalinist architecture mixed with like modernism mixed with like 8-lane highways with subway crossings to like get under, and like everything's like really weirdly busy but really weirdly empty, and like there's still like young people going out in like the scene and like clubbing and like
Really? There's still people going out, clubbing, everything like that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, life still goes on there for sure. There's more going on in terms of the war front, I guess. For the most part, everyone there was kind of there to do something, right? I was there to be an English teacher in Lviv, which I kind of felt like a dork about, but they could kind of tell. It's like a little bit like, oh man, you guys are cool on that. And they're like, dude, relax, which was sweet.
Yeah.
It was funny they picked up on that and were like, dude, relax.
So you felt quite welcome by the...
Super welcome, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're making like drone jamming equipment and like training people on like artillery and like getting put into the SBU as like an English dude who's just like forfeited his citizenship to like be Ukrainian and has like a wife there. Like there's all these like stories of like people getting really amongst it, which was super cool to see. Yeah, like really giving it the role, which was sick. Because you're seeing all these like really capable like warriors, I guess, who are like deep down like gorgeous people, and they're like there giving it their all, and that was really like beautiful to see, I guess. Yeah.
Did you ever think of enlisting to fight or anything like that?
Look, when you get bombed, you get that little like pineal gland where you're like, you just get like angry, you know, like, oh, they bombed a children's hospital, you know, I'm pissed. But you kind of just have to like check yourself because it's a different reality being an Australian, right? I mean, I'm not going to like put any sort of like semblance as to like why it's okay for me not to fight, but okay for Ukrainians to fight. But like, it's not expected. It's not appropriate for me. Yeah. I'm sure it's the same for them, right? I'm sure there's family members that would like never forgive them for enlisting, but they did. But I feel like at least it's like culturally and like socially accepted. Whereas if I did that, people would be like, that's insane. I'm not going to forgive you. You know, like it's and probably would like not come back in the same capacity. And also it's probably just like not, it's so difficult. Yeah. Because like morally, if you're worth the salt, you know, you would be, right? But you're not. And it's like, you know, you can kind of be like, well, I'm meeting you halfway. Like it's better than nothing. But, you know, it's like illegal, right? If you serve in the Foreign Legion as an Australian, you can't go home, otherwise you go to jail, right? And also, like, I have no training, And I don't know. It's a tricky thing to like even. I'm not gonna like try and justify it as being like, oh yeah, nah, not for me. But like,
have you at any point throughout your life thought of doing anything in the military or on that side of things?
Sure. Yeah. Since I was like 6. I remember telling my mum, I was like, I want to be a helicopter pilot for the Navy. And she was like, you're going to bomb children in Afghanistan? I'm like, what? Really? It's like
6-year-old angst.
Yeah. What? But it looks fun. I'm like, yeah, you're going to be doing bad things to poor people. I'm like, fuck, guess I can't then. Yeah, I mean, it's just like a childish, like, thing, right? I liked Green Army Men, playing with them. I liked war stuff as a kid. I'd like bite my toast into like shape of a gun and stuff. Like I'd always like play
all
with
the early signs.
Yeah. I always really liked it. I remember my parents trying to like dissuade me from like enjoying the spectacle and like the vibe of war, even though I always like enjoyed my little knights and little gun people, and all my little toys were always like war related, like wooden swords and stuff. Yeah. And they'd be like, they showed me, I think it was like a Rwanda hotel, that movie, Hotel Rwanda, I think it's called. And they're like, look, war's bad. Look at all these poor civilians. I remember being really little and just thinking like, yeah, but I wouldn't be the civilians. I'd be one of the cool soldiers. Which like just went over my head. Oh no. Like, good. Yeah, I've always been like enamored by it. In like a childish way, I guess. I probably wouldn't cope very well with like seeing. Yeah, I mean, just honestly, I just don't think it's appropriate for me to do. Yeah. I'm sure there's Ukrainian people that think differently. Just like from like existence, it would be perverse to do, I think. I mean, I did meet one Australian dude who went and went and fought, but he was completely rattled. But I think he seems suicidal, right? So it just seemed different circumstances, different people. If I could like clone myself and be like, okay, well, one of us has to do it and flip a coin, but all right, fine. But that's not reality, right? I've got like friends and like family who'd be like, here, what?
How would you summarize your life? Maybe it's sort of a weird question, but I'm kind of curious, like, what were you doing from, like 18 through 20, then like 20 through 24 and leading you up to now?
No, really young, I guess, so it's kind of hard to like gauge, but I guess from like 15 to 18, I liked video games and girls. From 18, my best friend committed suicide, and that was really difficult for me to just like figure out mentally, I guess. Yeah. Because like, you finish high school and you're kind of like thrown into the world, and then you're just like given this little package of grief, and you're like, here's your puzzle, figure it, and you're like, what the it's not something you can like, it's not a collaborative puzzle that you can do with friends. It's kind of one you have to like figure out yourself. And that probably took, I don't know, it took a long time. It took a really long time to like actually sort through that and kind of be really happy with it in a way, got to make the most of it. Someone died, right? So you may as well like take in that, make him your guardian angel, like do what you got to do, right? Make the most of it. But yeah, I think that was probably like the first 3 years coming out of like 18. And then it was like COVID and kind of trying to just like find identity. Because I think I did have an issue with belonging subconsciously. I mean, if you want to alienate yourself, go through a lot of grief when no one else your age has, because that sort of thing just doesn't show up here. Well, I shouldn't say that, but it's a lot. It's rare, right? And then, yeah, I don't know. I just kind of tried to like, I've always been very hard on myself. I should be doing more. And it does show itself in a really good way, like self-improvement and like having a lot of hubris and like doing outward stuff, because you're like, I should be doing more, can also be quite taxing, because at some point you have to be like, okay, well, I've got to be like happy with the man I am, or like happy with the man I can become. Like at some point, you know, it's got to like even out. And yeah, I think I just had like, you know, just actively trying to like make sense of it and figure out and like have a nice little comfortable place with my identity as like a young man. Because a lot of it was spent not in school, spent not, well, I shouldn't say not in work, but like, you know, 18 to 19, I kind of just played a lot of Dota, right? Probably a bit of an escapism. And then 20, 21, I think I just traveled and like Dota as well. And then came back to like COVID. And there was like Melbourne lockdown for like 9 months. So I was like, okay, I'm just stuck on with your thoughts for 9 months, playing video games. Like, I've been doing that for 2 years, whatever. And then coming out, I really wanted to just like have a nice, beautiful, virtuous life. Where, like you fit, you got some nice money, got a nice fulfilling job, where you're kind of like happy with those three things. And then like, I feel like, you know, your relationship and like the social things come after that. When you're in like a really good place. Yeah. And I think I did get there eventually, and then kind of was like, yeah, more maybe.
What were you doing? I know you've done like a bunch of little things. Like you were recently installing air conditioners.
I was an arborist before that.
Yeah.
Well, no, I gave a trades. Arborist is like tree surgeon, basically. Yeah. Because I thought it looked like a good balance between like fulfillment, money, purpose. Those are like the three things I wanted to fill. Kind of burnt out on that. And then got an adult ADHD diagnosis. And, you know, I almost failed high school. And then ended up being an HD student at university. And I think, you know, going through with that condition undiagnosed, with grief, you know, it was really hard to like figure out what's going wrong. And then just like acing uni quickly and easily and all this stuff definitely like reasserted some confidence in me. That was nice. I was like going to the gym, like doing all the memey self-improvement stuff. Yeah. Which really like was good. But it does make you self-critical, and you can't do it forever. Otherwise you'll drive yourself mad. And then I guess after that point, I got to like a peak of fulfillment. I'd have to say probably after my first semester of university, when I finished my first thing, I was like, okay, I can do this. It's cool. I don't feel like a, you know, failure, kind of. Yeah. And yeah, I just kind of like was doing school. I got a job as a chess teacher, which was sick. And then I realized, oh, I'm really good at this thing, teaching. And I really enjoyed that run with it. Had a nice lady and was doing some, you know, fun life in my 20s where I was kind of like confident in myself and like carefree, which was probably the first time in like a long while I had that. And then, you know, I was just kind of curious about the world, and what was happening to people in Ukraine really upset me. So I decided I wanted to like see what was going on there. And then I went there and kind of fell in love with the country. Now I'm back. And then I wanted to try one more thing. It's like, okay, try the arborist, try the teaching, try the university. It's all there, right? I'll try one more. Bit higher paying, bit more technical, bit more involved. Tried it. I'm like, okay, this is good. What's afforded to me? Life in Australia. Yeah. Okay, what's there to do?
Just briefly, did you call installing ignition more evolved?
Involved. Like physically involved and mentally just more involved. Oh yeah, more evolved. Definitely. Trees to air conditioning, very similar. And then yeah, I guess it's come to like a culmination where it's like I just kind of want real life to start in a way that's, again, this word comes up, where it's like visceral.
Yeah.
But it's like I just want a lot of juice from the lemon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
So I'm gonna go and find the biggest lemon to squeeze.
Do you want kids?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that'd be dope. I think I've had a fun time, and I think if I had some little kiddies, you know, hopefully they're a little bit smarter, a little bit taller, a little bit good looking, a little bit bigger dong, you know, they're gonna have an amazing time. You know, I've already had a great time. Why wouldn't, you know? Yeah, that's kind of the way I see it. And like love as well would be, I think, fun, right? Yeah, I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think it is fun, and I think it'd be really cool to like have this project with like beautiful women and get some like cool ass kids.
What do you think's the coolest thing you've done?
I don't know. I don't want to gas myself up, but I did like the fact that even with like really intense mercenaries who've got PTSD, who've like killed people, who don't really eschew the sort of like intellectual BS.
Mm-hmm.
They're very like simple, kind of like pagan poetry. They're just like direct with the meaning and like the beauty in that simplicity. I think it's really good. Mm-hmm. And they kind of just have a bit of for like semantics, you know? And that always just grabbed me and tagged me along and be like, do you want to join us in this unit? Mm-hmm. And I'd be like, thank you, but no, obviously not. And they're like, yeah. Like I liked how they like took me along for the ride, and like we enjoyed each other's company even though we're like from completely different parts of the world. Yeah. I think there was one instance where I was with the Polish dude and the Kurdish guy. Mm-hmm. And we were like hanging out at this bar with like all these other mercenaries, basically. Mm-hmm. And it was really nice. There were like also some like Ukrainian people just like coming there, like wanting to like practice English, like chatting with me and whatnot. And I remember there was this guy from Texas who's big meat dude, very intense. He was at like, I probably should say, but he was like, you know, they're all the real deal, but he was like definitely, you know, if anything above the real deal, he was that. Mm. And I remember like something about his age came up. I'm like, oh, spring chicken, you look great for your age. Mm. And the Polish guy pulled me aside and he's like, do not call him a chicken. And I'm like, nah, dude, that's fine. Like, it was endearing. Like, he's texting, he knows what's up. I'm like pretty drunk. And then like come back to the conversation, like, I just grabbed the gun, like, okay, thank you for telling me that. You're right. I had to like check myself and just be like, yep, he's looking out for you, dude. Shut up and listen. And I think that was the part I'm like most proud of, I guess. I think I was very good at like, you know, when in Rome, there was Romans do. Just kind of like, we're good at not like being a chameleon or anything, but just like reading the room and being able to be like, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's anything that a lot of people have misunderstood about you wanting to go to Ukraine? Like, is it kind of a common thing people say where you're like, that's just totally not it?
Not me about going to Ukraine, but the situation in Ukraine, people thinking it's complicated. Mm-hmm. Probably upset a lot of people. But I think it's very easy to make things complicated and filled with semantics when you're from a developed Western country, super detached from it. And it's this like, oh, you know, the Russians, they just want a solid border and they don't want NATO on their thing. And it's like this really like, you know, mental gymnastics to try and like justify them invading another country who just doesn't want them going in there. And then hearing the reality from like the Ukrainians there, and it's like, yeah, when Russians take a village, they like slowly murder and rape everyone to death and destroy everything again and again and again. Russian occupation, when they take your cities, like, you know, executing all the young fighting age men. Mm-hmm. So like, you know, anyone from 13 to like 20. No, sorry, 13 to like 50. Mm-hmm. And then like, you know, sending the kids back to like orphanages in Russia. And then having the women cook for them while they like murder their pets and like them and then like murder them when they're done cooking and they like have their own mental breaks. Like that is Russian occupation. It's just hell, right? And when someone's like, why don't they just give up this bit? It's like, because it's a fate worse than death, ultimately, right? It's not this thing of concessions. And I feel like it's just like a bloody mechanical propagandized like death machine that the Russian Empire is. You know, it's not going to stop unless you like defeat it, right? You can run out of gas, but if you don't like take it apart, well, not even take it apart, but if you don't like assert yourself as like not going anywhere, it's just going to happen again and again, right? I mean, it's like armchair geopolitical strategies, you know, like obviously I don't know what I'm talking about, but like when people try and justify that it's complicated, it's not complicated. It's actually probably one of the oldest stories of all time. When the Mongols like sacked, I think it was Babylon, modern day Baghdad. It's easy to be like, well, they had trade routes because of it.
Yeah,
you know? And it's just been like doused in this like antiseptic, you know, sterilizing thing. But it's like real, and it's ethnically fueled, which people don't believe because they're like, they look exactly the same. It's like, yeah, obviously, but they consider Ukrainians as like lesser, as like pig people, you know, and it's just like.
Is that something you like saw when you were over there, or how
you see it from the stories of occupation, of how the Russians treat, because it's under the guise of liberation, right? That's how Russia's propaganda and outward thing to the people are led. It's like, we're liberating Russian-speaking Russian people, but really they're just brutalizing Russian-speaking Ukrainians because they see them as Ukrainians. And they'll like continue to do so. I don't know, maybe it's not lazy. I just think it's out of touch a little bit. To be like, yeah, it's all these really complicated geopolitical things, and it all centers around like actually the Americans' fate, sort of foreign affairs, and like all this stuff. And it's like, well, you know, it's actually people just not wanting to be murdered, enslaved, and the West is willing to support that because for some reason people have forgot that there's a idea of democracy and liberalism being a virtuous good, and that it's a virtuous good worth fighting and dying for. We've forgotten that for some of us. And I think people have become a lot more pessimistic and mistrusting of like government and political beliefs as a whole, just because things are not going as great. They're degrading because of the mind. You know, people can complain, but like wealth inequality, I think it all just comes a large bit from that. And I think people are like, the fighting and death is senseless, and it's actually for nothing because borders aren't real, and yada yada yada. And it's like, well, you know, they are real when it means Russian occupation, basically.
I guess it's interesting to hear like how passionate you are about this, but still not wanting to fight yourself. Is it the kind of thing where when you're over there, you do feel like you're still doing as much as you feel like you could do or can do?
I feel like I'm doing as much as I can within my own sphere of like morality, because it is actually for my nieces, for my siblings, for my friends, for my parents, it is immoral for me to go fight, because if I die there, well, glorious hero, but you know.